In my previous video, I talked about my original impressions of the Avengers beta. Today we'll be doing something a little bit different. The Avengers does many things right, some of which you might not notice straight away, so I really want to show you why this game hits all the right notes for me. I want you to see what I see. It has a lot going against it, an underdog of sorts, though I know many won't see it that way since it's from a well-known developer. But an underdog is simply one that many are rooting against, doubting that it will succeed. I think it's only fair not to defend the game, but to go over the many aspects the game gets right. This is the 7 brightest aspects of Marvel's Avengers. Now thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoy. Avengers at first glance seems to have a basic level design, and while this remains true to a point, there's one aspect I really think helps with the environments and feel of gameplay. I'm talking about the visual spectacle. Now Avengers does this in many ways, but we're only going to mention a couple here. To put it simply, I'm referring to the destructible environments in the game. This is especially noticeable inside the indoor labs and workshops. Almost everything is breakable. Glass, windows, statues, tables, furniture, and more. In most fights you'll see satisfying destruction physics, and don't get me wrong, there are the moments where you'll run into unbreakable windows and unbreakable objects, which can actually stick out more due to the destruction capabilities, but overall I think this is one of the things that will help give impact to the inside locations. Another visual aspect that just glues your eyes to the screen is the combat. Sometimes you'll have these cinematic moments where you'll look to your side and see a teammate doing a special move or ability, and it just feels so damn immersive. And if you're a fan of the movies, that feeling is even more enhanced, at least in my case. These moments happen often no matter the facility or biome you're in. It really helps to give us these really awesome dynamic moments that just seem so small, but in retrospect have a giant impact overall. Speaking of environments, this brings me to our number 6 spot on the list, the level exploration. Exploring is so very important in a game such as this, and Avengers does a couple things to make the exploration fun and engaging, and I could have put these two things I'm about to mention in separate spots, but honestly I think they work best when they're combined. I'm of course talking about the puzzles and the rewards you can find. Having puzzles in an action-heavy game can sometimes feel off and irregular, but if done right, it can be a good way to break up the typical gameplay loop. And luckily Avengers, in my opinion, gets this right. Their puzzles are plentiful, but not too much as to make the experience feel overdone and cheap, at least not yet. Now this may change after hours and hours of play in the full game. Most of the puzzles consist of you finding points around the area and smashing them in order to trigger a door to open, which will reset if you don't hit them quick enough. Now some of them can also require you to stand on a trigger sensor, and while this is anything but complicated, it's just enough to make you think that little bit to keep you engaged, at least at the first few times you do it. And this is only what I saw during my time with the beta. Adding in the fact that you can just run around finding chests, loot, and even unlock new mission types just by looking around the environment, it seems Crystal Dynamics have put a lot of effort into rewarding the player's curiosity. Even if at first glance this doesn't seem to be true, I think the exploration shows real promise and is definitely something I'm looking forward to. But exploring would be pointless if the combat was shallow without any depth. Luckily that isn't the case, and brings us to the 5th spot on this list, the intense combat. This is also a subject that could easily be split up into multiple spots on this list, but there's so much more I want to give light to, I feel like it's best to put it all in one. Now combat shines in multiple ways. Fighting using light and heavy attacks at first can seem very basic, but as you progress the combo capabilities slowly start to peek its head out from hiding. Add this with the different abilities and you start to see the true scope of what's possible. Every character is filled with diverse movesets that are as complicated as the player wants it to be. Do you want to go the simple route and rely on basic light and heavy attack combos, making the game a button mash festival? Or do you want to play it as a hero shooter, always moving around, casting abilities and unique combos, feeling like you're an unstoppable storm, wreaking havoc on anyone in your way? And given that we've only seen a fourth of all the characters' true power, I can't wait to see what else the combat is going to entail, as we have only had one skill tree out of 4 to play with. And inside that one skill tree, there were many interesting choices, and I'm sure these are nothing compared to the depths the other ones might hold, which has me intrigued for sure, but this wouldn't matter much if the enemies weren't fun to fight, which brings me to our number 4th spot, enemy design and AI. This is something I kinda noticed early on. The moment I got into the first challenging mission, I noticed how the enemy AI was actually smarter than expected. They are no pushovers here. They aren't just punching bags waiting to be damaged. They actually react. They move around. They dodge to the point where it seems like they have cat-like reflexes. They will try to flank you or try to fall back to cover if you overpower them too much. They feel like intelligent AI that adapts to what the player is doing. and there's a good variety to them mechanically. You have the ground soldiers, both ranged and melee, there's the flying drones and laser turrets, you have the big tank guys or assassin-like enemies who do a lot of damage, and a lot more. This forces you to think about which enemies to prioritize, making you strategize in moment-to-moment gameplay, adding to the feeling of being skillful in combat. When you do damage to an enemy, especially androids, you can see the impact of your moves via pieces of armor or robotic body parts falling off, not to mention the finishers you can pull off, of which will have more to be unlocked in the full game. This is why I like the combat so much. The enemies are such a great aspect to the game that you just can't help but smile as you're fighting them. To me, this is evidence, this is proof that if anything, this game will definitely be fun. The third spot on this list is especially good for people who plan to play mostly solo or with only one other person. I'm of course referring to the teammate AI. In many games that follow the same formula as the Avengers does, the friendly AI can be torture. They will die, not revive you, just stand there and more, so I guess it's a good thing this game gets that important and often overlooked aspect right. In some cases, the AI is better than your human teammates. It will help you defeat enemies efficiently. They will target ranged enemies, turrets, and use every skill and combo at their disposal. If you actually want to, all of your teammate AI can actually consist of your own heroes. For example, if you have a high level Hawk you spent a lot of time into and have some really nice cosmetics equipped. This will show when you play as a different character with him at your side. You'll notice he uses all the abilities and skills you have unlocked for him. This adds to the replayability while also making testing, leveling, and equipping all your heroes extremely useful. Excluding a mode or two, this will really make solo play more than viable. All of the things I mentioned so far benefit from one main factor, however, and it's our second spot on the list, the attention to detail. The attention to detail in this game is actually insane. It's something that truly enhanced my experience overall, and it's littered throughout every aspect of this game. First, you have the enemies who will bob and weave your hits, especially when you're using Black Widow. It results in a small boxing match of you guys just dodging each other, and there's animations to actually complement this. It's really only noticeable after a while of playing. Then you have these details like the mini earthquake mark you leave when you're landing after jumping a far distance, which is different depending on the material you're standing on. The ragdoll effects here also have some nice detail to them, as well as the difference between big and small enemies. For instance, using a move on a big opponent can look different than when you're using it on a smaller enemy, and these goes for the execution moves as well. Like the Hulk's ability to have him charge and pick up a small enemy, slamming them into the ground. When you do this on a bigger enemy, sometimes a different animation will play out, and these are just but a few of the examples. To say that there is care and thought put into the many parts of this game is an understatement. I could sit here and name some all day, but I doubt you guys want to see that, so instead, let's move on. Now, it was pretty hard for me to decide which thing I would put into the number one spot. There's actually many things I wanted to add to this list, but I may save those for another video after release. However, our number one spot might be the most important, the communication between the developer and the community. No matter what game you're talking about, no matter how great that combat is or how impactful the story is, there is nothing more important than how a developer team communicates with their player base. If a dev fails to make that player feel as if their opinions matter, it can really hurt the overall community, especially in the long run. Of course, this isn't a big deal for single player titles like it is here. Surprisingly, however, the developers of the Avengers, Crystal Dynamics, understands this concept very well. Not only have they listened to player feedback during every beta test and made changes accordingly, they are also posting articles every day about what this game entails, discussing very important topics. They're always answering players who ask questions on social media and Reddit. I'll of course link their website below, but this right here is the reason I think Avengers will succeed. Many major issues that affected players very badly have been looked at and attended to. People asked them to change the camera sensitivity and screen shake, so they added in the setting to do that just a week later. This is but one example of them doing this. Even the mission rating system in-game is a sign of how much they want our opinions and want to genuinely improve the gameplay experience for this foreseeable future. They have stated multiple times that they listen to everything, and they have proven this to be a fact. Yeah, I know, there's major issues regarding marketing tactics. They are monetizing the game via cosmetics and character challenging cards, and it's kind of disgusting. I honestly hate some things they are doing, but if indeed all this new content, the new villains, new regions, new heroes, new stories are all free, then I do believe it's worth it. Not to mention that most of the time the people who make most of these choices with the microtransaction system aren't the people who are actually creating the gameplay design or the combat progression. They aren't trying to hide it or be shady like a lot of games do regarding the microtransactions. They are actually very transparent and open with us, as they have released an article recently detailing what the monetization consists of. I'm not trying to defend anything, especially monetization in games. I'm simply explaining why I can't wait to see the future this game has laid before it. In my experience, most games with a strong community are the ones who have caring developers, who are always taking in player feedback. A perfect example of a developer not communicating with their player base is Vermintide 2. Warhammer Vermintide 2. Now I love this game, I really do, and I have moments where I want to play it all the time, but the dev team is just so bad at talking to their player base, especially their console players. They abandon us altogether. We don't get the updates until 2 months later if we're lucky. And this right here is a sign of bad communication. These developers, I don't know why, they're releasing a new game, by the way, that might be why, but they just don't communicate very well. You look at them and you're like, what the hell? Are you that stupid? Do you really think you're not driving away your player base? Because you are. There's a reason that game's not doing too well, though they will argue otherwise. It's because of bad communication, and Avengers will not have this issue. So beyond any doubt, I believe this will prove to be the deciding factor of the Avengers' success or failure. Time may tell a different story, so as I slowly count the days until release, I might be putting out another video regarding the Avengers. However, I might wait until it actually comes out to do this, but I also plan to cover other games too. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I have been very bad in the past with delivering on promised videos, so I'm trying to change that. I'll usually be posting about once a week with varying style of videos from reviews to gaming news. Sometimes I may spontaneously post one, but mostly I'll be sticking to the schedule until I can get used to putting out consistent content for you guys. Now starting next week, after my review of the Avengers, I will be following this new schedule, so let me know what you guys think. Oh, by the way, I want to know, do you guys like longer videos, like around 15 minutes, or do you prefer the 5 to 8 minute range? I'm thinking of doing a combination of both. Anyways, thank you guys for your time. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon. I'm out of here.